As I've related before, my mom came out of a concentration camp in Europe, and in that there was an instilling in me in the condition of this world. And even though she didn't say a whole lot to me growing up, I felt her, and I could see her. And she did talk about it. I'm not saying she didn't, but there was an instilling of the effects of what happened. And I'm only using this as an example for the fact that when people don't take responsibility for themselves, they look for scapegoats. They look for someone or something to blame. I mean, all the way from blaming God to blaming your neighbor. Or anything but yourself. Oh, blame the devil. Amen said one time, he says, all the good there is, blame on me. All the bad there is, blame on yourself. And you have, of course, the saying in scriptures, if you love God, everything is for the good, everything's a blessing. Well, of course, that takes faith. And now, if you're in that place where you're going to take responsibility for yourself, which is the opposite of blaming anybody for anything that you don't like or that you don't want happening. See, taking a responsibility for yourself is recognizing, see, the intricacies of it are that if the Father's working on you, he would take something that you would consider small, and there would be big repercussions from it. That's him loving on you. That's him saying he expects, he's recognizing in you the desire to be good and true. I mean, I've experienced that in my early years. I experienced it. And when I filtered it through my understanding of the time, I thought, well, if I'm getting punished this much for things that a lot of people don't, that God, whoever he is, must be really working on me. He must, really expect something from me. Well, that would start to be seeing that everything's a blessing. I read a book one time. It was a true story. It's a policeman and a man who was there were sister cities somewhere in the Midwest. And the side that the policeman came from was almost all white, affluent. And then the other side of the river was basically a poverty ghetto area with a lot of crime. And most of the police lived on the side that was more affluent. And so they couldn't even hardly relate to a lot of what was going on. And there was this one policeman, he was hardcore, busting all the drug pushers. And he would even lie sometimes when he knew, or create evidence that didn't exist. When he was pretty sure that someone was guilty, he felt justified. Ended up, he busted a guy who's the other half of the story, because the book is written with each of these two men telling their side of the story. It's a beautiful story. And glorifying the Father, really. And so what happens is the policeman ends up busting this dark-skinned brother who wasn't doing drugs, who wasn't a drinker. He was a hard worker and had lost custody of his son with his wife. And for the first time, he was going to get to see his very young child. And ended up in a situation driving somebody he didn't know to a store because he wanted to have food in his house for his son's visitation. And this person he didn't know very well, through his cousin or some such thing, was dealing and made a deal right there where they were going to the store. And when the bus came down, he got busted along with whoever this guy was, his friends, his cousin's friend. But he was innocent. Now the cop decided he was definitely the drug dealer, created some evidence that wasn't real, and this man was given a 10-year sentence in prison. I mean, he couldn't believe it. as it unfolded. So when he got into prison, he was incredibly bitter. Now here's a man, he believed in God. And he wasn't in a state of devotion, but he believed in God. Well, when he got to prison, he was just angry. And all he could think about when he would get out would be to kill this policeman, knowing that the policeman had lied. Now, in the meantime, the policeman's living his life, and he also, with his partner, was collecting a little extra money from his CI, confidential informants. They created some that didn't exist so they could get some extra money. They felt they were being underpaid. And so he did things he felt justified in. And he was very well known for how many busts he had done. He had been raised in his position by that. So in the meantime, this man's in prison. And now I'm reading this in the book as it's unfolding. And the two stories paralleling one another. So the man who's in prison, he starts having people coming to him and mentoring him. And progressively starts releasing his rage to the Father. And progressively working on himself. And he's got the angels coming through, different prisoners who are being mentors and messengers to him. And so he realizes he's going to have to forgive and move on to have a life. So as all that's occurring, the policeman ends up getting busted and put in prison for a year, I believe, for the funds that he had illegally acquired and also for false evidence. So when that occurred, the brother who was in prison already, the black brother, he was cut loose because all of a sudden evidence wasn't reliable. So he was cut loose. And at first he ended up on the streets. There was a progression. I don't remember the details, but it was very beautiful. But the real bottom line that came, see, there were 2 times, that was the second time, that he had been busted for something he didn't do. The other time when he was young, with his dad told him not to do something and he did it anyways, but he got busted and arrested for something he hadn't done. But he started to realize in both cases he was doing things that weren't pleasing the Lord and in disobedience. And he took responsibility for that, even though by all human standards the punishment was way greater than the crime. And yet, he took the responsibility because it was his only way out to restore his communion with the Father and to have peace in his soul. And this all happened in a progression. And at the end of it, he ends up being led to it was a Christian organization. They had a small restaurant, and their whole operation was to help people in need, to provide them with work, to raise them up. And so he ended up being hired there. Oh, this is what happens first. The policeman gets out of prison, and the black man, with his son, sees the policeman in the park feeding people. And he doesn't know, but the policeman is part of it now, an organization that's helping people in need. And so they see each other. And of course, the policeman is somewhat aware that this man could be very angry at him. And so the man came up to him and let him know, you don't have to worry about me. You know, I got past it. And they parted ways. Well, it ended up that this black man got a job at this restaurant, this Christian organization. And who was there but the policeman? And so they started working together and started to get to know one another and acquired some trust to be able to speak to one another. And at one point in their conversations, the black man relates to the ex-policeman that he was innocent, totally. And he had nothing to hide at that point. And what a bust it was for the policeman. Here, in his own self-righteousness, he's so sure that his judgment is so correct that he's going to ruin a man's life with false evidence and at the same time be committing criminal activity himself. State of the world. State of the world. Yeah, and we do it with each other. We're looking in the mirror. I think about like the Nazis with the Jews. Okay, I don't have any problem believing a lot of the Jews were not doing good. And if they were very wealthy and they were uppity, all that. Of course that wasn't all the Jews, but whoever was doing all that. And then, but what's the judgment? They wanted to take everything from them and be exactly what they thought that they were doing. And blame them for all their suffering. And that's what people do. They're looking in the mirror because they don't want to take responsibility. And a lot of times the things that unfold seem very unfair. But if you're applying faith and you're not going to blame the government, the rich people, the white people, the black people, if you're not going to go looking to blame anybody, that doesn't mean that they don't have to take responsibility if they're doing evil. They do. And they're already under it if they're doing evil. But the evil they're doing to you, if you're in your right mind, meaning Christ's mind, is serving you perfectly to purify you. And if the Father is putting you through some really strong hardships or things that don't seem fair in this world, that's because he's got his hand on you. God chastises those that he loves. It's him loving on you. So the bottom line, don't blame people for the harm that they may do. Look at how it's serving you and take responsibility for everything in your life, meaning the hard things. Of course, the transformation and the beauty and the blessings, that's where we thank the Father for it.